Welcome to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert, and in this podcast, we will cover a range of different topics from culture, languages, and underrepresented stories. Join me with a cup of chai and listen to these stories. Welcome to Chai with Ping. Today, I'm really having a cup of chai with me. Thank you for coming to the show. And today, we have a very cool guest. He is a Latino from Puerto Rico, and he used to be a translator and interpreter. He has such a love and passion on linguistics. So I got to meet him in the medical interpreter training, and I just love his personality. So that's why I invited him to the show. Welcome, Norberto!
What an introduction. What can I say?
And I also know that you go with Berto, right?
Yes. It's just that sometimes people here in the U.S. have a hard time to say Norberto, which I'm not sure why. So I started letting people call me Berto. So
yeah, that is just so cool. Do you like chai?
Actually, I haven't had that much, so I can't say if I love it or not.
Next time, when everything opens up, you're gonna be welcome invited.
But you know why? Also, it's just that I had to relearn because I had a lot of like stomach issues when I was a kid. So now that I'm an adult, I'm relearning how to eat everything.
Okay, so dairy probably doesn't work with you. Okay.
So I'm working my way around like with drinks and food and like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will definitely make a recipe for you after you figure it out.
We got to do that. Really
That's
soon.
right. And today we're going to talk about two topics. One is your passion for linguistics and your career. And I know like you talk about like how you had a major and then you became a translator and then later how you left the field. And this is the first topic. The second one, I'm interested to know how it feels to be a Latino here, especially you're from Puerto Rico. I'm sorry what happened in your hometown, but we will talk more about that in the second segment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you ready?
I am. I was, as we say in the gay world, I was born ready.
All right, I have a first question for you. Yeah. I know that you study. You graduated from college already, so you studied linguistics. How did you choose that?
Well, funny because as you said, I'm from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in the here to do my master's degree at CU Boulder, University of Colorado Boulder. But my bachelor is in translation, interdisciplinary studies in translation from the University of Puerto Rico. And then I just wanted to further, improve or get another degree close to language, right? Because that's what I was doing. And so I did the master's here in linguistics, specifically in Hispanic linguistics. But our coursework was pretty much in like English and Spanish because it was divided through the Spanish and Portuguese department courses in linguistics and the English department or the actual linguistics department. So I actually took more courses in like linguistics in English than in Spanish. Yeah. But yes, that's why I wanted to do the master's in linguistics. I just wanted to improve my capacity as a translator and interpreter, right? And it's funny because I could have done the linguistics in Puerto Rico. We speak Spanish there, right? That it's Hispanic linguistics, but I needed to get out of Puerto Rico, so I moved here. Yeah. And I moved without being accepted yet. At the university, yes. Yeah. And when I was getting out of the plane in Florida, I received the email that I was accepted. I cried so much with my mama over the phone. It was such a good feeling. It was like, God, finally.
Yeah. Wait, so did you do your college and master's here in CU Boulder?
No, I did my BA, my bachelor's in Puerto Rico, and my master's here in Colorado. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Wow. And how has that experience been for you going into the master program?
It was really hard. I'm not going to lie. I have really good English teachers from Puerto Rico. People still today ask me, oh, how do you speak English so well? I'm like, I'm a U.S. citizen by birth. So,
right? It's like, excuse me.
Just a little bit of respect, with that. But yeah, I had really good teachers. I can't say the same thing for math, but and when I moved here, English was not exactly a barrier. Well, I didn't have a culture shock because Puerto Rico is pretty much Americanized. So in that sense, it's not like that different. But it was the university culture was a culture shock. That was completely different. That's something that I had to adapt. Learning, like reading in another language that is not your first or your native, however you want to call it. It's hard, especially something so philosophical, right? So those big and heavy words, as we say in Puerto Rico, those Sunday words, you know, that you just use on Sundays for church. It's heavy. It was really heavy. I cried a lot during my master's degree, like a lot.
So were you finding like the most challenge in reading or writing?
Yes, reading and understanding the concepts. It was so hard that I was not going to graduate my master's. Yes, it was that hard. Yes, some of us struggled really hard. And it was in like literally the semester before the university was about to tell me like you can't continue in the program. You would have to take a break. But then we found out the technicality that they done, and it's like, hey, I think you were wrong, university. So they apologized, and then they let me continue with the program.
Wait. Before you move on, I just want to ask, like, what exactly happened? Like, were you not passing courses or?
Yeah. So at CU, I was a TA. When you join the program at the Spanish and Portuguese, you become a TA. It's part of the program because you're the one who's going to be teaching Spanish in the program. So you join the program, you become a TA, you get your master's degree paid. Let's be real. Yes, you do. You get the 50% TA chip. And then it's your class, right? Even though the department creates the curriculum and everything, you're teaching the class. And you get all these like career development and how to teach and whatever. So it was really hard to teach grade.
First of all, you didn't have experience teaching Spanish, did you?
No, actually I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes, in Puerto Rico, I was part of a school called ISLA, which is Institute for Second Language Acquisition. Which, by the way, if you ever go to Puerto Rico, you should go there and take a class with them. They're great. But it's just, yes, I taught in Puerto Rico while I was doing my bachelor. That school in Puerto Rico was for military students. So, like, for example, DLI, which is like the class that they have to take for like the exam they have to take to like certify that they are they know that language and they can work on that language.
And DLI is specifically for defense department or military related language assessment.
Around that. So I was teaching like business people, like really, really high business people who will come to Puerto Rico. I remember actually giving Spanish classes to the people who came negotiate electricity, like things with Puerto Rico's electricity whatever office or however you call it. So yeah, I did teach, but at that moment it was not like this. It was not like you are constantly grading, you're constantly teaching every day. You're reading for your courses. It's not just a few readings, right? You always have all these readings for all these classes that you got to read. And so it was a combination. And on top of that, I had another part-time. So I was teaching at CU, I was studying, and I had a part-time.
Wow. So basically almost 3 jobs, because a master's program is also kind of like job.
Yes. So, well, my part-time was pretty much translating, right?
Oh, okay.
So it was heavy, right? Because you also have deadlines as a translator. So it was hard to study. It was hard to focus. I definitely did not create a good study habit. So parents out there, if you ever have a kid that like still have a kid in school, let me really say that. Please teach them how to have study habits, please, because it comes handy later on. So I struggled. I did have like a personal issues, like study habits that I didn't have, and on top of that, I had all the things like, you know, professional career, like teaching and studying. So that affected me and my grade, and it was like really, 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 really hard.
Yeah, it sounds very, very much like a struggle. And you were
Mhm.
teaching every day, so that means you're prepping. Well,
I was
teachers out
prepping.
there, we totally can relate to that. Like prepping every day, and you teach and you prep, and there's just nonstop. You don't even have your
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah.
Well, after the first year, or maybe the first semester, I was able to just reuse my classes. But in the first semester, God have mercy. Take the wheel, Jesus, because I can't.
Everything
And
was new.
everything. And then on the second year, I started teaching a different class, a higher level class.
Yeah.
So I had to redo the same thing the second year. So
Yes.
it was like, oh my God, the struggle is real, God. So um,
Wait,
it was hard.
were you teaching undergrad, like college kids?
Yeah, I was teaching undergrad just Spanish courses, Spanish
Oh.
101, and then I taught Spanish 102, if you put it that way.
Yeah. Was that a requirement for all freshmen to take a foreign language? Because I know in
Yes.
my university it is.
So here at Colorado, every student is required to take a language. It's part of the law, pretty much, for you to
In
graduate.
college.
Right. Well, and you have you can either cover it in high school, so
Yeah.
you can have 3 years of high school, and then you won't have to take it in the university, or you
Oh,
just take the requirement in the university.
got it.
So that, as far as I know, that's how it works here in Colorado. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
wrong, people, you can just let us know, because
Yeah, shoot us an
I'm not from
email.
here. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're all
Norberto's
not
email
from
will be
here.
there. Yeah, yeah.
So yes,
Wait,
so
wait, wait. Then that means a lot of students are very reluctant to take your class, right? They're kind of forced to. Was that?
yes and no, and it's funny, and this is good to point out. I think that this could be another topic, and it's how students, if your name is, let's quote, put it between quotes, um, white, or if your name is not like Latino or like Hispanic, let me correct that. If it's not Hispanic, then they'd be reluctant to take your class, especially if they're English native speakers and they're teaching class. They usually want to like change sections to like Hispanics classes, you know, and it's
Oh.
just really interesting. That's a thing.
What you're saying is like the Latino kids, they will want to transfer to Hispanic classes, but then you will have.
Oh, not exactly. So, for
Okay.
example, I was talking about the instructors.
Yes.
So, all the instructors, for example, in the department, we have people from all nationalities, right? And usually from Latin America. But we have people from the U.S. who are also doing masters in literature, Hispanic and whatever, in Spaniard and uh, Baroque. I think that's how you say it in English, or I don't know,
Yeah.
like those, you know, right? And us in linguistics. So people who
Ah.
speaks English come to the department, and obviously their requirement is that they know how they speak Spanish, right? Because they have to
Mm.
teach Spanish too. And many of those who are native like English speakers, they have like really generic US names, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they see that as that's the instructor who's gonna be teaching me, then they say like, oh, I don't want that. I want someone who actually speaks Spanish as their native language.
Oh.
So they're like, no, I don't want to change sections. You have space in your classroom. So, so that's
So
a
the,
thing. That's a
yeah.
different. That's a thing that happens. I don't know if other universities, which I'm sure it does, but at least in CU, it's just like a thing.
That's true. That's a little racist over there, like a microaggression. Because
I I
I
call
have
it
to admit,
more like a
I would
mic.
do that too.
So yeah, I mean, I would do the same. It's just the sense of like the mental thing of well, you want someone who is experienced in the language. But now taking the topic in linguistics, there is something that from the school that I am, it's called like procedural languaging, which is that there are things that you do without knowing that you do, right?
Yeah.
So in that part, we're kind of ignorant, expecting that person how to know how to teach us their language, but probably that person that may know, but at the same time, that person may not know, because it's just a procedural knowledge, right? It's just like, you know how to do it, you know how to pronounce it, you know how to move your mouth to make it, right? And when the moment comes and someone asks you, you're like, actually, I never thought, how do you say that, or how you like that? So it's just like our part of like that construct of like someone who's a native speaker could teach me better, versus like who actually someone went through school and had like all this technical background in the language, who might remember more than us, right? Because we're just like literature students or linguistic students who come to just, you know, learn about language, right? Or history of literature, right? So
Totally agree. So it's like, from what you're saying, it's just like, well, for example, if you're taking a second language learner, so for example, I learn English as a second language person, and then I can probably be better in explaining the grammar, and that's my advantage because I kind of know it from learning. However, native speakers, cool, they have great accent, great language skills. However, they might not be as thorough to explain technical issues in a language to students. So really, it really depends on the person. And
right. So after being in the program, I've been like more conscious about it, right? Because I saw the student doing it to us, so I was like, I think I have to rethink this too. So because it's a bit unfair for coworkers, right? It is not our fault, but if we can also just change our mindset, I think that's a good way to even start change, right?
That's true. Yeah, I had that experience in my past career as well. Yeah. Wait, so you said before this show, you told me that you kind of left the field of interpretation and translation. What happened?
Well, I'll put it really simple. I lost the passion for it. I think that and I think that this might sound bad for people, but I think it is not. I really am not interested in giving people language to access, like access to language. Oh my God, I had a syntax issue. It's not what I want right now, but the other way around. I just want to see how they language, right? I just want to see how they interact and how those things take place in day-to-day talk, like, you know, a coffee like us right now, or like talking to a friend over the phone, or, you know, in a party, right? Something that happens spontaneously, or in an institutional talk, right? So like a doctor's appointment, like a recorded doctor's appointment, right? So I'm more interested in what's going on in the process of them communicating than giving people access, right? So I lost the passion for that, but I found the passion for, I want to see what you do when you talk to someone else. And there are a few studies out there that actually include interpreters. Conversation analysis has done that quite often in the last few years, where they analyze a doctor's appointment to see how we interact and how social constructs work, right? And interaction. So I left. So I was part of the Colorado Translators Association board as a supporting member. I was in charge of their media, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and I can't remember. I think those were the main ones. Oh, and the blog that they had. And that was in 2018, I think it was. Yeah. And then I just realized that this world was not for me. At least it was not only the passion, but also how the new generation of interpreters and translators get treated. This is my opinion. This is how I see it. I'm not expecting people to agree with me, right? But this is what I experienced, right?
Tell me about that.
And it's just the sense of like being around like a previous generation, right? Let me correct that. And they are like, they have this business, because for them it's just like it is what it is. And they just, decide what to do. During my time in the board, it was really hard to bring ideas that were constantly, fresh, because yes, they were willing to be in that process of like, oh, that's a good idea, but we should also keep this in mind, right? I'm like, oh, yes, we'll never change if we don't, push a little bit forward. So I'm not saying that the board of the people on the board was bad, but as the collective, they were thinking of like really specific things for the profession. And then you take a step back and look at the profession and you say, oh, it's just that everyone thinks like that, right? So we, the new generation of interpreter translators, are like, we get hit a lot with like, you're lazy, or you don't want to learn, or you are just not ready. And like, what? Y'all were like that when you started interpreting and translating, and there was less education then, right, about the topic. And right now we have classes and degrees in the topic and everything. And of course I got like mad and frustrated, because people say a lot about, oh, do networking, but the networking is worth it if the networking has like brings something with it, right? Many times after you do networking with like interpreters and translators, it stays there. In many cases, they say, oh, I have a business, I have an interpreting agency, or translating agency. Just send me your resume. Here's my info. You send it, and then they say, oh, I don't remember you, or they don't reply back. So it started getting harder and harder to get requests for interpreting and translating. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And losing the passion and then fighting against the tide was a little bit hard, right? So
give me an example, or what exactly happened that you felt like the previous generation, not the older one, but the previous generation are shutting you guys down. Like, what exactly happened?
I just think that it's a sense of them thinking that we're not ready, right? Or you're not prepared enough, or you are not. It's just like in any profession, right? You're not experienced enough. Sadly, somewhere I got to learn how to just interpret a judge. Right? Or sometime I have to interpret how the person introducing this new car to Latin America companies speaks, right? So I need that experience. I had a really catastrophic case, but that was my fault. I should have known my limits with interpreting. There's a science agency or company, or I don't know how to call it here in Colorado, that takes care of like anything that has to do with weather and all that stuff. And like higher ups from Dominican Republic came to talk with the company and help them with their electricity system and so, and it was simultaneous interpreting. So for those of you who don't know, there is simultaneous and consecutive interpreting. Consecutive is like you talk and then I talk.
Yes.
And
simultaneous, one sentence after another. Right. And simultaneous is like you translate into earphones or headsets, and at the same time.
At the same time, just going like 3, 4, 5 seconds after. Whatever has been said, nonstop, right? And I did simultaneous. What a disaster. What a disaster. It was a disaster. They cut my pay in half and everything.
Yeah. What happened? Why was it a disaster?
Oh, because the topic is like science. Like I was not an engineering topic specialized interpreter, right? So even though they sent, which is good, many companies do that, others don't. They sent us the slides and the info that they were going to be presenting on the slides. it's just too hard to just learn all that in just 1 week, in my opinion, for me, in my experience, how my brain works, right? There are great simultaneous interpreters out there. Oh, they're good. They're good. I was not. Either way, it was just hard. It was just a mess. It was trying to relearn all those, like, that the topic and like the terms, like specific terms.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't have the time to go through your notes.
Yeah.
At least I was not well versed like that yet, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So I couldn't go through my like notes really quick, and it was a
Yeah.
disaster. My interpreting was just like horrible.
And so the people who hire you actually listen to your interpretation?
Well, it's not like I was not communicating. It was just that it was taking like a lot of time for me to come back.
Yeah.
Right. And then they could hear like he kept talking, but this person is not talking. So I got to the point in which I had to do summarizing interpreting.
Yes.
And it was just bad. It was horrible.
Did you get complaints from the listeners?
No, I had the complaint through the person who hired me. So, which is all right. Like, that's how you learn. That's how you know how to step back. And I know that I can do simultaneous interpreting.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do it in another topic. I haven't tried again, right? Because there are certain topics in which like we could be good. Like, I was a professional ballet dancer. I could definitely do simultaneous interpreting on that topic because that's something that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I have it ingrained in my brain, like like in English and in Spanish, but not engineering.
No, definitely
not.
not.
Like atmospheric engineering was like, God have mercy, what is going on right now? And I was sweating. I rarely sweat, and I was sweating on like AC, and it was really bad. But like, it was a combination of many things. But I think that for me, the hardest part was that, like, this previous generation that is, leading the profession is not open to change. It's not open to change. It's not open to, trying new interpreters or translators. Like, you rarely find places in which you can ghost an interpreter.
Yeah.
Or you rarely find places in which like you can co-translate with another translator as a training process.
That's right. Yes.
So you rarely find that. Like, school can actually teach you, but when the moment comes, what happens, right? What are you gonna do? It's just a sense of like, how are you gonna learn about the business if you can't be introduced to it?
That's right. So
like, code interpreting is hard, for example. Like,
it is
not that beautiful.
Yeah. So from what I'm hearing, that you also say that there was a disconnection between this current generation, which is playing pretty well in the industry. However, when newbies come, there are no opportunities for you to kind of co-work together, or even do it, I don't know, like internship, that kind of thing. Like, the opportunities were kind of, how do we call that? Monopolized?
Yeah. I would say that. We got the same word.
Yeah.
Girl.
That sounds really hard. You have struggled. And how long have you been struggling before you decided to change?
I don't know, like during my time as part of the CTA board, I think so. Yeah. Because that's when I got like to see how the actual, profession world worked, right? And at that point, just taking the exams for anything was just hard. It's just a kind of thing that you have to do often on your own. If you're not a self-starter, if you are not willing to read by yourself, if you're not willing to force yourself to like educate yourself, right? Then translation and interpreting is not a profession for you. Right?
Yeah, it takes a lot of self-discipline, and then you just need to be like in solidarity. Wait, is this solidarity? Like, you have to work alone?
Well, basically, not exactly. I mean, I'd say that it's more of like like you have to be willing to do what you don't like to do, period. I am a procrastinator. And it's really hard for me. It's really hard for me to just read about a topic that I'm not sure when I'm gonna present or when I'm gonna work, right? So even though we specialize in interpreting and translating topics, that does not take away that I am working on it, right? And this is really important because this is what I also do in linguistics. Like the frequency of what we do, it affects the way that we talk. Absolutely. And the language is an extension, like language is an extension of human behavior. So habits are part of who we are, right? So frequently done, like things done or whatever, how you say it.
Yeah, before you leave this industry, was there any stories like which you kind of remember the most as an interpreter or translator? Like, for example, there's an assignment which is like, wow, so impressive, or you finish a work and that was a very special experience. I'm not talking about good or bad. You choose.
So I already talked about the bad, which is the one with this agency, or company. Actually, it's a private company. No, it's a federal company. I mean, fix that. Yeah, it was a federal interpreting case.
Whoa,
It was really bad.
yeah.
I had a case in which I had to, because I was specializing in medical interpreting. That's right. We met in the Bridging the Gap certification, and I was interpreting for a pediatric cancer case.
Wow, and how did that go? What happened? What exactly happened? Don't mention any names.
No, obviously, right. But the case was just about this kid who was in the last stage of cancer, and there was nothing else to do. Like there was no treatment that could help. There was no medicine that could, alleviate the pain of the kid, etc. Yeah. And it was really hard. It was really hard because as an interpreter, especially as a medical interpreter, right, we have our ethics right there. You cannot cry. You cannot feel emotion. You have to be the emotion of whoever is talking, right? Mm-hmm. And the hardest part of being an interpreter, a medical interpreter, is that it's not the doctor giving the news. It's you, the interpreter, giving the news in the paper or the character of the doctor, right?
Yeah, and in the words that your clients can understand.
Right. So it gets to a point in which, like, of course you get drained. Of course you get tired. Of course you absorb what's going on. Yeah. You are the one who is absorbing the punches and then passing the punch away, right, from both sides. Or you're the one who's basically just giving comfort, right? Yeah. It can go like anyway.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It was hard because I was sitting over there and I had to say, the interpreter would like to express how sorry he is for showing his emotions. For those of you who don't know, for example, you as an interpreter, especially as a medical interpreter, you should always stop to clarify. For example, the interpreter would like to clarify a term with the client. You turn around and ask the person what they meant, and then you say to the doctor, stuff like that, right? So you try to be like to step away as a person, and then you are an it, right? And then you say, well, interpreter, right? You don't say Norberto. You say the interpreter would like to blah 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 blah. So at that moment, I had to say the interpreter would like to excuse himself for a second, since he is unable to continue with the interpreting.
Can we cover a bit more details with that appointment? I'm so interested to know. Exactly was it the last appointment for that kid, or it's like the news?
No, it was just to give the news that they were on the last stage of anything that they could do.
So before they already knew?
Well, yeah. This is the last. Like they were saying, like your kid is not gonna live. Like we can't treat your kid anymore with any medicine. We can't like you can't just treat them anymore. It's just I'm sorry, we can't do anything about this case anymore.
How old was the kid?
He was like 10, something like that.
And the parents were there?
Yes.
Oh.
They were Mexicans. It was really hard. It was a really hard case.
Yeah.
It was just too heavy. It was impossible to not be human, and that's part of the ethics. Like, right? Well, kind of and kind of. It's just a mix. If you're not in the interpreting world, it's kind of hard to understand it. But
So tell us about that. Yeah, what was going on in you?
I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to like say, hug them. You can't hug a client. You can't.
That's right.
You can't suggest anything to the client.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You can imagine you being like a liability to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Because the agency is not going to say it's our fault, right? It's the agency is going to say it's the interpreter's fault. We're going to fire him, and then you're going to get sued, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot give any recommendations. You have to completely avoid the client before and after the meeting.
That's right. You're only a language conduit, like a channel from the doctor to the patient.
And I think that people, and I think that many interpreters would agree with us, that I'd say me, I'm not sure in your case, in your hometown, right? But we Hispanic people, we are really, for example, we like to hug people. We like to talk to new people.
Yeah.
We're really open. We are like,
expressive.
If you're crying in the street, I would just stop and say, "Are you okay?" And I will hug you, right? Because that's part of the culture in Latin America or Spain.
Yeah, to be empathetic for someone else's emotions.
Right. So it's just hard because you can't hug them. You can't recommend anything. You can't suggest anything. You cannot take the character of Norberto, for example. You have to be the interpreter, and you cannot cry, period.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's just like you have to be an it. And I wanted to cry. I wanted to hug them. I wanted to say that I was sorry. I wanted to say that I wish I could do more. I wanted to say like I wish I had the money to find another doctor and try it again, right? And keep finding medicine that could at least help or alleviate, and so, but I couldn't do it, right? It was just a rage inside of me of like, this is not fair.
I know. Right? And it's just like you need to suppress your feelings and in order to be professional. And I remember like in our training, we actually talk about that. It's just like when interpreters were being very passionate of helping people. However, we need to reframe ourselves from showing any compassion.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah, because that's how professionalism is for our industry. And that's just hard because like we can't really express our feelings and we can't talk about that afterwards either. Wow.
HIPAA law protects, like, you can't talk. I mean, we even avoid talking about the cases, right? Because we're human. Anything can slip out of our mouth, right?
Yeah.
So we don't talk about the cases at least I don't talk the cases with anyone. Because like, I don't know, something I'm emotional at that moment, and then I say the name or the age or whatever, right? And like and as an interpreter, I have to protect myself because I'm also vulnerable, right? I don't have filter because I want to cry. I would just want to, blow and take it out of, like, just start blabbering whatever happened there and all the names and everything, right? And take it out. So we as interpreters, we also avoid like talking about the cases. I know I'm not sure about you, but I know a lot of people who just avoid just talking about it.
Or I keep it very, very vague. So I don't mention the specifics. I just told about the whole like general story, and then it's like I talk about my emotions to my family. It's like I feel very, very sad for them, but I can't really. Well, I can talk to my therapist if I want to.
Right, which is like another. We have to invest like on other things about being an interpreter that I didn't like was like doing the taxes yourself, right?
Yeah.
People think that it's that beautiful. It is not. Like, and old generations say like, oh, come on, it's not that hard. You've been doing this for almost 20, 30 years. like we just started and you're not willing to just show me how to do all these itemized things and saving receipts and doing quarterly because you're an independent contractor, et cetera, that was an issue. And then on top of that, you don't get health insurance.
That's
right?
Yeah,
you don't get health
freelancer.
insurance. You have you pay for your own taxes, you pay the Social Security yourself. So when you get paid, you have to do all the math, separate that, put it in another account if that's how you work. Pay it every 4 months, every 3 months, I think it is, and or just pay it at the end of the year. And it's just a hassle. Like whenever I want to, if many of these interpreters are married and their husbands or wives, they have a specific job, right? And then they have health insurance that they take, which is great, right? I'm not saying that that's bad. All I'm saying is like we don't have that advantage, right?
As independent ones,
as independent ones, like we're not married, we're single or something like that. We it's like really expensive to pay a health insurance.
When I got my tax filed form, and I was very shocked because I have been working almost for 2.5 years of freelancing. So I do independent job of tutoring and interpreter and all that. But like in the end, I still have to pay like $500 of taxes. And I'm like, I'm barely making the minimum. And right, like we don't have any protection. We don't have health insurance coverage. We don't have any benefits. We don't have Social Security.
And on top of that, our profession is not regulated.
Totally not, because we all depend on our clients, our agencies. We cannot decide when we need to work, when we can't work, because it's just based on needs.
Yeah, despite some hospitals with like salary are really limited, and people fight for those positions, and they can't keep interviewing for weeks, right? Because a lot of people keep in like sending resumes and whatever and apply, and then they're like, we can't keep receiving all these requests, right? Because everyone wants to just leave the independent contractor thing. And it's just like hard. So it's just like that's all those reasons, like losing the passion, like the way of thinking is like too antique or old, or taxes, health insurance. That was an issue. It was an issue for me.
Was there anything that you were like, I did a great job and this is awesome, I've been making impact in people's lives? Was there an incident like that?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I know that I was really good at doing the social media with the Colorado, with CTA, Colorado Translators Association. And I was actually proud of it and happy. There were times in which I was like just forgetting about things, like a human thing, but it was also things that were happening and that would motivate me and whatever. But I can't say there's something that I feel proud of as an interpreter or translator. I can't say otherwise about linguistics though. I can say things that about what I've done or what I'm doing right now, et cetera, and what I do with language.
What are you doing right now? Tell us more about that.
So I do research in language. I specialize, for those of you, in many cases, a linguist has two definitions. Can either be an interpreter, a synonym for interpreter or translator, or it can be the person the scientists who actually studies language. So now I'm gonna say linguist for the scientist. So I scientifically study language. I focus on three things. I do morphosyntax, phonology, and conversation analysis.
Wait. These are big words. Let's break it down a little bit. Tell us the definition about each word that you should mention. I can't even repeat after you.
So let's just break morphosyntax. Morphology is basically how a word is written. If you wanna, like, this is like a really taking out like all the details. Like a lot of linguists out there might butcher me after this, but morphology is focused on, like, for example, change in a specific word, right? Syntax is the focus on of basically the construction of the language, of how, if it's subject, verb, object, or like in Japanese, which is the opposite, right? and then conversation analysis, I pretty much focus on social construct and like interaction and social construct, right?
So what do you
So I
listen
basically look at
for?
words,
Yeah.
I look at sentences, and then I look at the whole thing.
The context.
Right, if you put it that way. So morphosyntax, if you put it together, again, I'm butchering all this to me. But you basically are looking how basically the construction of a language affects the interaction with that sentence construction and the speaker's mind.
That sounds like psychology related
so it's
as
pretty
well.
much kind of cognitive linguistics.
So
in other words, I'm trying to see if the change of how we say that word and where we put it in that sentence affects the representation or how people see it or what is affecting, basically, which is the majority of what I do, is what factor is forcing people to do that, or like taking people to do it, right? So for example, what I'm doing right now, if we take a really simple, is a small sample. In Puerto Rican Spanish has been known for velarizing, final word and. Velarizing is like any word or any sound that, for example, it's done in the back of the mouth.
Give us an example.
Like ing, like eating, dancing.
So kind of shorten the form of ing.
Not exactly, but basically like changing the point of articulation. So for example, when you say no, you know that the tongue is just in the front of the mouth, the part of the mouth, right?
Yeah.
But when you say eating, you know that is in the back of the mouth, right? Those are point of articulations. That's the place in which like we make sounds. So in Puerto Rican Spanish, what is going on is like the N, which is usually done in front, like in the front part of the mouth, is actually just changing to the back of the mouth.
Can you give us a word?
Yes. So like the word sing in Spanish, canción, right? You can say canción. But Puerto Ricans are pretty much doing canción. Right?
So imagine, so you can hear the sound from the back of your
and this is an
mouth.
extreme way of me doing it, right? It's not like French that they're like ho ho ho, right? No, that's not that, right? It's not that case of it. It's similar to what goes on French, but it's with a different mindset, because there's no like echoing in the mouth. It's just like really dry, like It's just really hard to put it out there so people can see it. But basically, that's what I do. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to see the factors that influence velarization in Puerto Rican Spanish. Word final N. So, so what I do is like regression, like statistical analysis. I put all these cases together, and then I see how these variables interact, and which one is like influencing this phenomenon, right?
So from what I'm hearing that you just said, like, let me just summarize to see if I'm right. It's like you're doing research and you want to focus on how people speak and how it affects the accent and pronunciation in a certain area.
Not exactly the accent. Accent is something different. But basically pronunciation.
Okay.
Why are doing it, and why is it not happening in other countries? Because it's only in the Caribbean, right? So the Caribbean is well known for that, especially Puerto Rico.
Yes.
But it's not happening in Mexico, for example.
Wow. Mexicans so how do you do that? Yeah. Like, do you go into a database and then see like how they mark those pronunciations?
There are a lot of things going out there.
Yeah.
Usually what I do is I collect the data myself, or we use a corpus. Funny thing is that when I moved here to Colorado, my professors were actually studying Puerto Rican Spanish. So that was like surprising. Like I was like, oh, I came to Colorado, and then they're studying Puerto Rican Spanish.
Yeah,
that's
back home.
The research that they do here.
Yeah.
So and I didn't even know about it. So they already had their corpus, they shared it with me. And also I had other corpuses that I found, et cetera, et cetera. And then I basically go through the data. I listen to the audio, and I just find that sentence because it's transcribed. The audio is usually transcribed, and then when the person does the sound, I stop the radio, like the audio, and then I record that sentence in Excel. I type it down, and then I break it down in whatever I'm doing. So yeah. So for example, like what I do with this specific sound change is that I put the sentence first in the first cell.
Yeah.
And then on the following cells, I put like Velarize yes or no. Following segment, previous segment. The following segment is a consonant. Is the previous segment a consonant, etc., etc.
So
and
it's like data analysis or data collection, actually, in this
data collection and analysis.
Yeah.
Because I put
and
that
there's
in
a checklist.
Program over there, and the program does the math for me, and everything happens over there.
Are you working under a research program or a grant or institute?
I'm independent. I'm completely independent on this.
How do you support yourself then?
Well, it's differently from other like research stuff that you have to pay for. This is something that you, for example, go out there, record, and you do it yourself. So you don't exactly need all that. Like I'm not like a biologist who needs all these instruments to work with it, or like a chemistry, right? I'm not trying to like work with chemicals or anything like that. So yes, it's just easy to just not get funded. Like it's really rare to get funded in linguistics for that kind of stuff. It has to be like really big, like really big.
Or probably very prominent professors and
right.
programs.
And it's not like my work is not important. It's just like it's a specific part of the linguistics world, right? Just like endangered languages, like not many the people do endangered, that's how you say it? Oh my God. Languages, and it's just a really specific niche, and they usually do have funding because it's just like a different thing. It's part of history. We would like to understand their language to understand society, and so like we want to see if the same interaction that happens in the city happens in a non-city section of the world, right? And that's pretty much what I do. So what I do to just step back is basically we do what is called usage based, which is like we record or like an audio or video, we transcribe that, and then we analyze that data. We're not like the old school of linguistics that thinks and says that things happen in the mind and we're born with the tools. No, we actually think that we are socialized to those tools and we get those tools, right? So that's why language is part of the human behavior, right? Because it shows a lot of what we do. So habits / what we call in linguistics frequency, it's really important. The more frequent a word, for example, is, the higher the possibility of being reduced, right? That's why many times we say, I don't, right? Or instead of I'm going to, it gets reduced all the way down to I'm gonna. Right? So it's because of frequency and the tendency of wanting to work less. So reduction of a sound can also be considered a way to make less effort, right? Because it's easier to, right? So it's a work, it's less work in your mouth, right?
Yes.
If the closer to the back, the less work.
The shortcut for the language.
Right. So yes, so I pretty much see how that works, and the way that we use language affects the way. Wait, what did I say?
The way that affects languages.
Oh, so the way that I totally went off with that.
That's fine.
Because I was gonna say the opposite. I was gonna say that a theory that is like debunked already. So the way that, oh my God, I keep thinking of that theory and that's the wrong one. The way that we use language affects how we see language.
That's true.
So not the world. Basically, No, I said the same thing.
That's fine. If we want to skip this part, that's fine.
No, because it's important to say, like, the way that we use language affects mental representation. So let me give you an example. You know what a chair is, right? You know that a chair has specific things, right? You sit on it. It has a back that you can lean. It has 4 legs, right? We can agree on that. But then what if you get a stool? You can lean on it.
Yeah, and 3
Or what if,
legs.
or what if you get a rolling chair, the one that you can just keep moving, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a chair,
Yeah.
but is it a chair? The chair that we're thinking of, like 4 legs, you can sit on it and you can lean back, kind of. So we store things in our minds by how similar they are, right? And the more we use that, the more we can relate it, right? And then it's easier to access that information, and it's easier to use it later on. The same thing with language, right? You basically store all these instances in which you use something, for example, a word, and then the more frequent you use it, the more ingrained it is in you, the easier the access, and the more prone to sound reduction, for example, because it's used so often that there's a possibility that word can be reduced. And then the other part is that words that do not go through that frequent use, they just fade away.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So you just don't use a word, and it's just gonna fade away. So basically, that's what I do. So the way that we do, like, cognitively process language is basically what we language, right? So there's this theory, and this is for all these interpreters out there and translators. No, language does not define the worldview. Like, language, the world is not based on language, right? Our language is based on the world and what we need at that moment. That theory has been debunked quite a few times.
Yes. Yeah.
There's this movie, Arrival, that focuses on that type of theory. Great movie. I loved it. And we remember that during the masters, we watched it in the department, and a lot of professors came and we talked about language, and we had like a talk, and it was fun. But no, like your world is not limited by your language. Okay. It has been shown, for example, I think it was in 2007, that in a Russian study, that people language for their needs. So they're in Russian, it seems that they have 2 names for blue, or a specific blue. I can't remember if it was a specific blue, but it's a blue, right? And they have 2 shades of, like, 2 blues. And Russians have a name for each blue, like blue 1, blue 2, let's say, right? And English speakers had also, we're going to see that same blue. So when the Russian people had the blue presented to them, they were able to name them, but not English speakers. That does not mean that they were not able to discriminate, that there were 2 different blues. It's just that English speakers did not have another name for the blue. It was just dark blue, light blue.
Yeah.
But they were able to discriminate the blues, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that they can't see the blue. It's just that they need it. They don't need, right, for conversational purposes, to use another name for blue. So their world is not limited. Right? It's just really specific. So yeah, that's pretty much the things I do, the things that work. I think I never defined conversation analysis, but basically is how we interact, how social interaction works, right? We know that when you grab the phone and you say hello, someone's gonna say what?
May I speak to
something, right?
Yeah,
Something is going to happen afterwards, right? You know that it can either be hello or like, hey, I was waiting for your call, right? You know that something is going to happen, and you know that a conversation starts with a hello and it ends with a
bye. Yeah.
Right? So those things have been shown, like how we're able to project things, how we are able to repair our conversations, like how no's are hold it more than yes. Like when people are gonna say, when they're gonna respond to a yes or no questions, when disagreement is there is a lap, like a time that goes, and then they say no versus yes. Like yeses are given like really quick, but no's, they take time because we want to save what we face, right? We try to avoid disagreement. So usually no's come later than yeses. So that kind of stuff, like, what happens in an interaction with a doctor, what happens in an interaction with mom and dad, how identity works in this interaction, and so on. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, today we talked so much about interpretation, translation, and Norberto's transition from one to the other, and now he's finding his passion on linguistics. And he was so kind that if any listeners are interested to talk about all those kind of things that Norberto just mentioned, his email is ncprols@gmail.com, and it will be also included in the episode note. So wow, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Chai with Ping. Let us hear your voices and stories. Please share this episode, like and follow us on Instagram at chaiwithping. You can also email us at chaiwithping@gmail.com. Till next time.